Gears of War 1, the 2006 blockbuster gaming hit. The game I've spent the most time on. The game that made me buy this damn console. Let's rewind in time and let's find out why the game was so special to me, why I enjoyed it so much, and take an in-depth look at everything that's inside my brain for Gears of War 1.
We're delivering the most powerful high-definition gaming experience to date.
Cinematic experiences and really getting immersed into the story of a game.
The game is kind of a combination of the best elements of a tactical shooter with the cooler parts of a survival horror game.
The game was created by a studio where everybody just seemed to be having fun. Crunching time, trying to create games, and trying to create Cliffy B's vision.
We go out, we go drinking a fair amount. We go shooting quite a bit. Play video games all the time.
Cliffy B was a blonde-haired, brash and brazen developer, trying to take the world by storm with his idea. Never happy with publishers, he wanted his idea and he wanted it his way.
Never been fully satisfied in my entire 14-year career with any publisher's job marketing any product I've worked on.
He was the driving force behind the success of Gears of War, and you can see that with future games a little bit more corporate, something Cliffy P definitely fought against.
I guess there's more contention about the Saw, is that it's a little, over the top gory.
That's exactly what the kind of branding we were going for, I thought.
We understand that, so does Peter. That's not something that we can change at this point because the ship has already sailed.
Microsoft didn't even want the chainsaw in the game. It was Cliffy B and his team that wanted it in there. They wanted that over-the-top, chunky, gritty Gears of War gameplay, and gritty they got. The chainsaw was in the game and people loved it, and it was ready for E3. The game was beginning to take shape and everyone just having a blast. Here we can see maybe why the melee stun is in the game. One particular user wasn't quite happy at not being able to shotgun a chainsaw user up close. Maybe this is the first example of balance wine in Gears of War right here.
Guys, you gotta be able to use the shotgun when you're in close. Like, that's really annoying.
I think these guys just wanted to make the best game they could. Fun in the office, fun outside the office. A community, a group, a tight-knit unit. Kind of like the cogs themselves. Welcome to this video and thank you for clicking. Quick intro, I'm going to try to get everything Gears of War related out of my brain. Well, at least some of it. And share with you the joy of the game, from enjoyable moments to in-depth mechanic talks. If that sounds right up your alley, then great. Join me and let's sit in that lobby where so many of us have spent countless hours and chat before I play some clips and footage for you. Now, I've ummed and ahed about making this video 1,000 times. Should I bother making the video? What should I do? And every time I get the idea in my head, I sit down, I make it, I plan it, I write it, I end up watching Gears of War videos for 2 hours. I start reminiscing and thinking, snap out of it, mate. The game's old, it's finished, move on. And the truth is, a large part of me feels very daft sat here talking to you right now. Because realistically, I shouldn't care this much. But honestly, I do. I really like Gears of War and it's a part of me. Massive cringe alert. Two of my favourite YouTubers are the late Total Biscuit and Joseph Anderson. And the reason they are is because they aren't scared to use long-form videos to get their point across. So unfortunately, if your attention span is 3 minutes long of flashing transitions and copyright-free vlog music, this video isn't for you. There's simply too much to cover in this time frame. Some of you have probably seen the length of the video and clicked off, but for those staying, I hope I at least give you something to think about or give you something to reminisce on. I'd like to think you can critique a game without being seen as negative. I only critique games that I truly enjoy. If I'm not enjoying the game, it gets thrown away in the pile and it doesn't get played. If I've sat down and I start critiquing something, it's because I absolutely love it and I want it to be better. So try to remember that. The Gears community over time has become very divided, very split. From people hating the shotgun to people loving it, to having two entirely different balance settings to appease both sets of players. But in 2006 to 2010-11, the community really wasn't like this. It was a much simpler time. And today I want to take you back in time and show you some of my favourite moments, show you a little bit of insight into the development, show you a little bit of what made me enjoy the game so much. The fact that I'm sat down making this video in 2019 is a testament to how good the game was to me. How many other games do you truly get lost in thinking about the moments and the fun, especially with complete strangers you met online, you met alone, you met through the game? People don't even talk online these days. They're all inside party chats, too scared to talk, or too worried about what they might say because they could be banned or they might be labelled toxic. When I played online Xbox, when I played Gears of War, it was an entirely different era. Pretty much surmised by the image you're seeing right now. The lead developer, the driving force behind Epic Games, wearing a shirt saying you're retarded. Today that would be a PR nightmare. He'd be fired. There'd be hashtags of Twitter trending, get him out. It was just different, and I want to show you that. You think a decade later I would have moved on from this Xbox 360, this white box. I would have found a new game. I would have got over the old community. But I genuinely think Gears of War 1 was a super well-knit community where everyone had a different style, place for that style, and importantly, there was just this underlying respect that regardless of what you played, how you played it because it was Gears. You played it because it was just that, Gears. Gears of War is a 2006 military science fiction third-person shooter video game. The first installment of the Gears of War series. It was developed by Epic Games and published by Microsoft Game Studios as an exclusive title for the Xbox 360 in November 2006. The game focuses on you, the cog, taking down the Locust in seemingly any way possible. Grenading, booming, sniping, shotgunning, lancering. The detail in a console game from 2006 was excellent, from great gritty areas to large expanses that gave a sense of scale as to what you were fighting against. Thrown into this game was a cover system allowing you to swap walls, protecting yourself and manoeuvring around the battlefield. Gears of War wasn't the first game in existence to use cover, I acknowledge that. Players have been using cover since the days of Space Invaders to protect their ship. But this game definitely helped popularise that mechanic for the next decade. Winback for the N64 is one of the earlier examples I can find of taking cover and popping out for damage. Lee Perry is somebody I often spoke about during my time creating content for Gears of War 1, and he had a few words to say on that cover system. There was this still very real fear that players didn't want to play a defensive game, and that is what made Gears of War so great. It was a defensive game at heart, a thinking game, especially during multiplayer, but as players grew into the game, figured out its mechanics, the game became faster and faster, and that initial worry of the game being too slow would definitely be dispelled. The game quickly went from players lancering outside of cover and movement slow to explosive close quarters gameplay where cover was used as a movement tool and not so much protection for extended periods of time. The team were always trying to improve the game, not scared to be overcritical to push it to its limits.
AI sucks.
Okay.
And my feeling is it feels a lot like whack-a-mole right now, where it is, I'm ducking, you're ducking, I'm ducking, you're ducking, I pop up, shoot you, you duck.
You ready to go? Go!
People begin to see things in the game they would like to see in future games, then you can carry that torch, you can carry that mantle, so to speak, and help present it to developers or fans. But for me, that time has gone. I've done my time with balanced podcasts, videos, forum blogs, articles, and as I'm a bit older, I merely wanted to just show what I enjoyed and put it on the internet. I guess I want to show Gears of War 1 to me in all of its peak to preserve a small snapshot of that era for posterity. Balance whining and videos have been done to death across all games. Whatever the balance of any game, someone will be unhappy. I cannot change the game. I'm just a former player with an opinion. What I can do though is talk about the amazing community, the player hosted servers, the competitive scene, party chat, game chat, and other topics that made this game great. To begin, I will chat about the campaigns, but if you're more of a multiplayer person or a balanced person, there will be timestamps in the description to jump ahead to sections that you're more interested in, as it will be a long video. The very first thing that comes to mind when somebody says Gears of War is probably Mad World. That now infamous trailer, that dark trailer of Marcus Phoenix alone, evading the locust through dark skies, burning cities, raining streets, just trying to survive, and just as you thought he'd made it to some form of safety, a large unknown creature backed up by thousands of glowing eyes blocks his path. All hope is lost. This was not a world that anybody wanted to be in, well, except me. I had to play that game, and I'm sure many others felt that same excitement, that buzz. Gears had this classic style of juxtaposing the darkness of the world, but giving you the excitement of wanting to be there, to be involved. There was a running theme for these trailers, roughly 1 minute of dark cinematics, a trailer that showed how close the team were, how much they'd been through just to survive, and how they had to do it all over again to survive again. Sprinkled inside this minute would be a small moment of reflection, contemplation, about what they had lost, or maybe had to lose. It was simple, but effective. It reunited you with the team, it showed you a brief glimpse of the new battle you had on your hand, and as always, it was accompanied by an infamous Gears of War style soundtrack.
At some disputed barricade, it may be he shall take my hand, and lead me into his dark land, and close my eyes, and quench my breath. I have a rendezvous with death.
Although each iteration of the franchise tried new things, the trailers remained a stable foundation to the game. You knew what you were getting, a dark, gritty world where you and the crew were about to tackle some grubs, and possibly lose some friends. Although Gears of War 3 wasn't my favourite game of all time, it still had it. That ability to get me hooked into the game, to make me want to play. Even the title of the video made me want to click it, Ashes to Ashes. It even sounded like this was it. It was going to end. And I needed to know how. I needed to play it. The dark skies are lit with piercing bullets from the Horde, and once again you were hopelessly outnumbered, but you were outnumbered together. Gears of War 4 even did this. This time slightly differently. It stuck to that format of dark gritty action in 1 minute. Already you were beginning to sense that emotional switch of the series. JD was going to do this alone, without his father. It wasn't quite as well received, just through pure numbers. It was more about the emotion of the game, rather than the world you're about to enter. It did retain some Gears of War features, but ultimately there was a clear shift in direction. From you can be outnumbered and do this, to you can get over this emotional struggle and do this. Then comes Gears of War 5, or as I like to call it, Woman versus the World. That's no disrespect to women leading games. It rubbed me the wrong way, and many others the wrong way, because it just didn't seem to fit. The trailer was 4 minutes 37 long, and seemingly looked like you were watching the start of an in-game cutscene. I understand the developers are trying to create a new group, but a Gears trailer, for me, is a sacred minute. You need it to be dark, harrowing, a sense of impending doom and dread, and instead we got the group chatting and a heavily over-emotional dramatized style piece of work. The trailers seem to focus more on how Kate can do it all on her own and...
Captain, screw your order! This isn't about you, it's about me!
It's me up the wrong way, because Gears has always been about how you and your group have each other's back. Suddenly this dark atmosphere was replaced with a look at our shiny new graphics lighting system. This felt more like a tech demo, not an emotional piece to drag me in. There was no real memorable moment for me in the trailer. It was more of a showcase of a player playing through the campaign, rather than a heavily directed emotional piece. Ironically enough, the franchise has been desperate in its journey to become more movie-like, more Hollywood, more emotional, and if I was ever to watch a movie of that game, I would prefer it to be based around the tight-knit Gears of War 1 group and not the newer Kate-led team. Trailers for me were just absolutely brilliant. They were some of my most memorable moments. Going on the Xbox 360 and downloading the trailers and waiting for that download to finish, sitting in your room, full screen, and just watching the trailer and just imagining the possibilities. What was going to be in multiplayer? How was the story going to progress? What new monsters were going to be in it? What new areas are you going to see? And honestly, I was literally a kid on Christmas. I just wanted to just play the game as soon as I could. There was just a tangible buzz between everybody that you knew in the Gears community that night. When a new trailer was released, it had people talking, people speculating. Everybody just wanted the hands on the game. They just wanted to play it, and that's what I remember, is just an emotional piece. There aren't many trailers that have come close to those first 3 Gears of War trailers. A simple minute of pure joy in a seemingly dark place. For me, the trailers hold a special place in my heart, I guess, because they just take me back. They transport me back to my childhood. Trailers for me were just a very, very important piece, and I don't think the trailers these days have really captured the essence of Gears to me. 2006, I've got my Xbox and I've got Gears of War 1. So I'm playing through the campaign for quite a while and I'm still really bad. And it's seemingly impossible for me to beat the campaign, but man is it addicting. I guess in a way I've grown up with Gears, and sadly to me, Gears of War I feel has gone downhill when it comes to the campaigns. Gears of War 1 and 2, and I guess even 3, were a stunning visual piece for its time, in my opinion, for a console game. Dark, gritty, rain filled the screens of our homes, and we were taken into a world where beasts rule, or should I say locust, and it was your job to rid the world of this problem. Now, granted, the story wasn't overly complicated or even all that spectacular, but the encounters and the world felt real. Mini-bosses were introduced with a sort of hero-like entrance. And the units all had a unique charm. There was nothing quite like walking round the corner and hearing that shit. It felt like you were a unit, a small group of friends trying to make it through the world together through any means necessary. From avoiding the krill, lighting up the pathways, driving through dark, rugged terrain, or simply flushing out an emergence hole. The missions were definitely not very complex. This was no Morrowind or Elder Scrolls based online open world quests. You had an objective to do, a simple one: save the world. Generic, yes, but charming, yes. It was a game that knew its limitations. It didn't try to be something else. It knew it was a generic shooter campaign, but it didn't take itself too seriously.
Just in time.
Yeah, just in time to kiss my ass.
Man, I can't believe we missed this.
It certainly didn't attempt to wade in on political and moral issues.
Baby stuff.
You got an issue with babies?
No, I have an issue with being told I need to have one.
When I load up a Gears of War game, I want it to feel like it's me and my crew going to defeat the Locust. I don't want to lose anyone, and I'd be worried if any of my crew would disappear, and if that happened to me, their deaths were impactful. Gears of War has always had a love for the Hollywood moment. This is not anything new, and it's not really a negative. In the older games, there was just as many big Hollywood moments as there were in the future games. However, Hollywood moments existed for a reason: to push the story along, to showcase a brutal death of a team member. Gears of War 4 feels like it just came up with scenarios that sounded cool on paper, but just didn't really fit with what I had in mind when it comes to Gears of War. Again, I have no problem with the robots and the futuristic monsters coming into the franchise. From a story/lore point of view, I guess it makes sense, but just because something makes sense doesn't mean it's always the right option to pursue. When I put this disc in my tray, and I purchased that game at midnight launch, it was because of two things. One, I wanted to see how my crew would handle that next encounter, and two, how the multiplayer would be. dark, gritty, bloody, fast, close. Yes, fighting a helicopter is cool, but to me it just doesn't feel right. Gears of War is still a very well-rounded, well-received game, but sadly it doesn't grab me, it doesn't suck me into the world and leave me wanting more. More often than not, I'm a little bored and tired and I want to get it over with. Something I never experienced with Gears of War 1. Gears of War 4 featured characters that I had no real attachment to. Take Oscar for example, Kate's uncle. We barely see him. He's taken and carried off in the campaign and I barely give him a second's thought. Then we complete the game and reach its emotional climax, and an entire post-game credits scene is dedicated to this man's return. Like I'm meant to care. This wasn't Dom's wife dying, and the anger shown in her loss, and the vengeance he wanted to dish out.
Maria.
Dom.
Dom was your boy, your teammate. You both hurt after watching him lose someone. You wanted to go in there and kill all those locusts, just as Marcus did in that Gears of War 2 campaign. You wanted revenge. It meant something to you. It was passionate and it was great storytelling.
I found a way to sneak into Nexus. But if you want to go in guns blazing, I don't blame you.
I want to kill them all.
Nowadays, it feels like I'm fighting against robots with no personality. Leaders with as much charm as a wet flannel, and a colour palette that to me is it's too bright, it's too cheery for a world that is infested by Locust and the Swarm. It's seemingly gone from a gritty shooter to the strange Hollywood-style campaign where everything feels forced and unnatural.
Go to where they live and where they breed, and we will destroy them. This is the day we take the battle to the heart of the enemy. This is the day that we correct the course of human history. This is the day we ensure our survival as a species. Soldiers of the cog, my fellow Gears, go forth and bring back the hope of humanity!
And think about the men and women whose sacrifices guaranteed our survival. Thanks to them, we fought through the long twilight. We built a new prosperity. The world the new cog has ensured knows no war, no suffering.
I think mainly the issue for that is the groups and the people you play as aren't people I've grown up with. I don't really have any affinity towards Kate, JD, Oscar. These are just random soldiers. The game does a good job of giving backstory and trying to put some emotion into it, and at times it does succeed. But the charm and the banter and the overall theme of the game for me is gone. Sadly, at times I feel like I'm fighting on rails. It seems like everything is just a little too telegraphed. A room with lots of cover must be a fight. Door presses after door presses after door presses. I've replayed that Gears of War 1 and 2 campaign countless times, but the latter campaigns such as Judgment, Gears of War 4, it felt like a real chore to get through, a drag. Waiting for doors to open, waiting for robots to push you, waiting for waves to spawn, waiting for more mediocre Hollywood dramatized action. Wind flare was cool once, a helicopter was cool once. But if you keep adding in all those things that sound cool, you end up quickly going from A to B to visit this cool thing, but the overall theme and the flow of the game is lost. Gears of War 1, I knew exactly what the game wanted to be, and how it tried to accomplish that. A feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of being outnumbered, a feeling of dread, a feeling of oh, what boss is around the corner. Now it feels like I'm playing to see not what boss is around the corner, but what thing is in the game that the developers thought was cool. There's plenty more I could go on to talk about, how the crew doesn't even really feel real. They barely cover you in the campaigns. They don't really speak apart from cutscenes, and it's like once they finish their voice line, it's quite frankly empty. Frankly, it feels like I'm playing a Gears of War game to get to that cutscene, because that's where the drama and emotion is, the action, and not the gameplay itself. It's becoming the exact thing I think Lee Perry and Cliff were worried about, a generic, slow, cover-to-cover shooter. It was cover-to-cover shooting for 95% of Gears of War 4. And it feels like you're playing that whack-a-mole that Gears of War 1 so desperately tried to avoid. It feels dull. Gears of War 1 for me was absolutely brilliant, and even Gears of War 2 campaign was one of the best I've played. I really felt involved in the story. I felt like I was making decisions that mattered, and the world and the environment, it felt like I was digging deeper to get to the Locust, and as I was digging deeper, more enemies and more creatures were being revealed that I really didn't want to see, but I kinda did. That look over the cover moment at a horror movie, I was like, what's about to happen? But you really wanted to see it anyway. In Gears of War 4 and what looks like Gears of War 5, I could be wrong, it just feels a little bit too dramatized, and it's lost that charm for me. And I think the trilogy of Gears 1, 2 and 3 was some absolute top tip campaigns, and I'm a little bit worried about the Gears 5 section, and I just wanted to put my thoughts out there that for me, Gears of War 1 was like my childhood, and maybe I remember it with rose-tinted glasses, but it just felt Gears.
No, we're here for Alpha and the Resonator. Come on!
Before we talk about balance, let's talk about the community and the scene and what it was like to play. I think the Gears of War 1 scene and multiplayer are summed up by the simple clip of one of the multiplayer characters running. You set off running and the heart is beating, it's pulsing out of its chest, and you're just on the way to hunt for action, and you're just driving towards that next piece of action. Most young kids in 2006 weren't allowed to play online, and most of us didn't use mic. And nobody threw a hissy fit to their parents that were stopping them playing online. I couldn't moan on Twitter, pick up my phone and hop on an app or chat or use Discord whilst I used my Xbox. There was really nothing else for us, game chat or nothing. The internet and online console gaming really was in its infancy. There were 3 main multiplayer games on Xbox, and that's really all there was. Halo, Gears of War, Call of Duty. And you made a choice. What did you want to sit in that disc tray? Which one? There wasn't downloads, you weren't changing discs, you signed in and you played the game you'd selected. So you didn't really have too many complaints because, well, everyone was on that game because they'd selected that one. If you didn't like the pattern of playing Gears of War 1, then you didn't play it. You prefer rifles, prefer kill streaks, or throwing grenades, you played Call of Duty, and if you preferred a bigger team-based game, you went for Halo. It made no sense to play Gears of War and constantly yearn for the rifle. If you really wanted that, you would have signed into Modern Warfare and got out the M14 and played some Search and Destroy. If you didn't enjoy the core gameplay of one, the other 2 games often satisfied your need. So for the most part, everybody that you met on the game was there because they enjoyed that game. They enjoyed that core pattern of play, and they didn't try to change it. They didn't jump on Reddit. There wasn't really game patches. You played it, you got used to it, and if you didn't like it, or you couldn't handle the heat, you got out of the kitchen. Many players quit after getting destroyed online. Others learned to overcome that, practice, and become a good player themselves. Why? Because you stuck with that game, or you ditched it. There was no real in-between. Multiplayer. I've played all of the games for a good length of time, and at a fairly good level. I really enjoy the multiplayer, Gears of War competitive, all the way to installing Gears of War 4 this past week and getting Diamond 3 in less than a week. Not that I really think the system is any good, but that's by the by. The multiplayer is a simple concept of 4v4 Locust versus COG. We've had some different variants from time to time, from Judgment featuring no Locust to the Gears of War now featuring wrestlers and pink guns and robots. It's honestly quite jarring. Look, I get it. The wrestler's funny, but come on, like, have some core values. Don't turn this into some weird Terminator Halo hybrid. Oh, wait. Look, the customization options for skins and stuff is actually really good, and something I would have loved in Gears of War 1. But sometimes I think people get so caught up in an idea that they forget to check should they actually do it. The Swarm characters, to me, have no personality. They all seem so similar and bland looking. For me, nothing really beats that original set of characters. They all had a charm and a personality about them. I don't really play Gears of War to kill a red tiger camo robot. For me, in Gears of War 1, my favourite character to play online was Marcus, Kim, and the Sniper Locust. Let's talk how the Xbox multiplayer and versus menu was set up. Very simply, there was a minimal amount of modes consisting of Execution, Warzone, Assassination, and later Annex. Each mode was accompanied by their ranked/non-ranked option. You couldn't chat to more than one person at a time. It was private chat or nothing. That was already a key factor into sticking with a game. Suddenly, if you had multiple friends and you enjoyed spending time and talking with them, then you had to be playing the same game. It wouldn't be uncommon for your friends list to be made up entirely of people that played just one game, because that's where you met people. That's right, met people. Due to the fact players needed to be in the same game to talk, you often met friends of friends. They wouldn't be hidden in a private party chat. Here's an example. You have 3 friends, you just got back from school, and you wanted to talk to them. You literally cannot do this on the Xbox 360 at the time. So you find a game that you all like or honestly tolerate, and most players simply started out by wanting to talk to people and stayed on that game, and naturally became better over time and began to enjoy it more. A larger skill gap and harder learning curve was a turn-off for players, but it was less of a turn-off because people like my friend. They would pop in Gears of War 1 and stay on it just to talk, and hell, if he died, he began to chat to the other dead players in the lobby. Maybe he shit-talked them. Whatever floated your boat.
How much Prozac did you take or some shit, dude? Nah, fuck you, dude. You the one fucking yelling like a little bitch, dude. Fuck, do you need your daily cock in the morning, man? Shut the fuck up, dude.
I want someone to do the black man handshake on my prick.
Yeah, do it to hype, dude. Come on.
Fucking homo. You fucking homo.
What? You're a homo? Alright. What? You like... Man. What? Why are you yelling for? What? That's all you know, you fucker. You stupid, dude. Why? What? Where I at? Dude,
With players being able to host the games and control how games were played, there was a huge incentive to create games that the community wanted. Because without the community, your game would not be filled up. And, well, nobody wants to sit in a lobby on their own. People had their own settings, map rotations, and rules in a way. Player matches did not give anything, only ranked gave leaderboards, and Gears of War 2 and others tried to do social matches, but there was no real customization, and the lobbies were mostly filled with bots, and my personal favourite thing to play was 15 rounds, 3-minute duration Warzone. My rotation of maps were Canals, Fuel Depot, Gridlock, Mausoleum, Rooftops, and the occasional Bullet Marsh. Maybe some Clock Tower. Our maps were not the absolute top meta MLG maps. There was a balance for everybody. So when the game lobby was filling up, people would explain, alright guys, it's 15-3 Canals. The next map I'm going to host is 15-3 Mansion. So if anybody wants to join after that, search up. And you'd meet a lot of like-minded players in that way. Yes, the host did have an advantage, but think of more of that as a bonus for sitting in the lobby from the start, talking to the lobby, organising it. A good host made the difference in Gears of War, and I'm not just talking connection. I'm talking on a personal level. It sounds daft, but that's how it was. Some hosts ran a really tight ship, and you could get from game to game with settings you like really smoothly. Others were a fan of the 19-1 Shotgun Rush Raven Down, a quicker style. 5-round execution with 5-second bleed out. I personally didn't mind Warzone. It was my most played mode, as it felt really rewarding if you got revived, and you had to play a little bit smarter than execution, but it wasn't slow. Rifles didn't really hinder you that much, unless a team did it, which was rare. Also, headshots. You couldn't down somebody, wait for them to stand up and headshot them. All headshots were earned, which meant my seriously 1.0 in headshots in Gears of War 1 was very, very rewarding to me. As players started controlling the game, you could simply not start the game if there was an issue. If you had somebody that you disliked in the lobby, you weren't in the mood to play against, you didn't start the game. Yeah, that was very, very rare, but it was an option, and you had a bit more freedom in matchmaking. The core modes were Warzone and Execution. We all enjoyed the tension of that game mode. One mode had a quick self-revive timer, and the other, you could be killed across the map via any damage. These modes were popular because we enjoyed the search and destroy / Counter-Strike style model of the game. Cliffy B himself said that the game was inspired by that model, and everything points to it. Spawning with 2 different races, it's similar to CT versus T, with maps often symmetrical in design. Something I will go into more, but for now let's leave it at that. A key thing that made the game great was that it was round based. It gave everyone a chance to talk when dead to the enemy, and a funny benefit of the lack of party chat was the silence that would be washed over you when your teammate would be talking and die and his voice would cut out. An example of the pure community in Gears of War 1 is Annex, a respawn based game mode that was introduced, but it never really took off for ranked. It was, however, one of the staple player hosted matches. It was used as a permanent lobby type of thing with cycling maps. Now this was just like King of the Hill, but to simplify it, the hill didn't move until all the points were drained, a bit like Halo 3 territories. Spawns were infinite and set to a 15-second delay, and players would be in that game for forever until it was captured and all the points were gone and a winner was determined. Hosts would often fire up a War Machine Annex and be in there for 10 hours. It sounds crazy, but it happened, and to be honest, it happened a lot. Hosts would fall asleep, leave their Xbox on whilst at work, or just host a lobby for the boys to log in and shotgun fight all day, or sniper battle. There was an unspoken rule in these lobbies to not capture the point, or the game would end and the AFK host would not be there to restart the game. It was often a sad moment in Gears of War 1 when somebody would capture it and the game would end and the 11-hour lobby would finally be dead, and the host sat in the middle whilst everybody asks, "Hello? Hello, are you there, mate?" I recently played a competitive warm-up game on Gears of War 4 for the first time with my old group, a similar game mode to Annex. But this time everybody captured the point. Nobody really had any shotgun fights, nobody spoke or typed. It was a heavy cross-lancer setup, and the game was over in 5.5 minutes. We asked, "Why did you capture it? It's a warm-up." To which they responded, "Yeah, I want to warm up before I put my rank on the line. I want to work on some spots." It's a different generation of player that play these online games now. Or at least that's how it feels to me. Overall, to me, player-hosted lobbies in Gears of War were a fantastic thing. Now you have no information. No way to fill up a lobby. You just sit there and think, "Oh, I guess it hasn't found a match in 10 minutes. I guess I'm leaving this game mode and I'll search something different." The matchmaking system, to me, simply extends the problem. Populated game modes become more populated, and less populated game modes soon become dead. I know Gears of War 5 is a player-based server browser, but if it's not custom and ranks and everything is still the way it's set up, people will just play for XP and ranks rather than fun. Ranking system. Finally, apart from meeting people and having a laugh and shit talking in between rounds, a whole host of other things that made the game great was there was no rank. You had a weekly leaderboard, overall leaderboard. I was personally in the top 100 of Warzone what felt like forever. The desire for me to play the game came from my enjoyment of the scene and the mechanics, and not the desire to get a visual or MMR based rank. When MMR and rank is on the line, players naturally feel different. They play differently. There's more stress, there's less chill. Different guns, different strats. It's all about the optimal play, and not so much playing Gears because you love Gears. Don't get me wrong, I do like a ranking system. I played a lot of StarCraft 2, but in Gears, at least to me, it doesn't make sense. Being a Diamond player or an Onyx player or a Bronze player doesn't really mean much. In the Gears community, it was tight-knit. You knew who the good players were. You could tell just by watching their movement, their play, their accuracy, their reading of the game. You didn't need a ranking system to determine that. A good game wasn't always about the win or loss. It was determined by the people you met and played against, how close the game was, how many great shots were hit inside that lobby, not solely by the win-loss or the MMR gained. These days I play mostly versus lobbies of Diamond players, and they're not playing for a good quality game or doing the things they enjoy. They're playing only for the win, and this quickly gets tiring. Any small issue from the map gets exaggerated because everyone is playing for something. Imagine if Gears of War 1 all people did was Pistol and Lancer, because frankly that's a lot of what competitive was in Gears of War 1, which some people don't really remember. It wouldn't be nearly as fun. For me, it doesn't really make much sense to include a skill-based rank in Gears of War when, to me, the game has had a culture of being a game you hop on with you and your buddy, you try and play well, land some shots, and maybe win some games, but the overall important outcome of Gears was to have fun. I understand every single modern game has an MMR system, a rank system, or a way for players to track their skill. But for me, Gears had an opportunity to break away from all that and really push the other side of the game. The side that made it so special to me. The custom lobbies, the hosts that sat there for 11 hours, the people that chased the weekly leaderboard. They could have taken that idea and ran with it. Gears never needed a 1 to 100 rank. It didn't need prestiges. It doesn't need an MMR based system. In my experience, I don't even play against similar ranked players, and if they do, why? I don't sign into ranked Gears of War 1 to play a super close GB style sweat match. I don't really want to sit and play versus Diamond 3s all day. If I did, I'd be playing scrims or GB and playing against better players. To me, a ranking system is just odd. Speaking about winning or losing, I was really fond of the Gears of War 1 quotes from Hoffman, a simple feature that gave each round a little bit of something.
Classic textbook example of what not to do. You lost, but you could have won. Ask yourselves what happened. Unacceptable. 100% unacceptable.
That's what Gears of War 1 was to me. Listen, it's not wildly different. The games are very, very similar. And a fan of the series, someone that pops in and plays some Horde, some campaign, 30 hours of multiplayer, it's all going to seem quite similar, but it's just a small percentage off in a large variety of things. And all of those things add up to make the game feel slightly different, less charm, and, well, less Gears. Players played what they wanted and searched for settings that they wanted. Sniper matches were massive, and they were simply a lobby to practice your shots. I personally didn't enjoy these and often got kicked for hard aiming, but that's exactly what made it great. The rules for these famous Gears of War 1 battles were simple. Shots only, no actives, and a simple swing of the gun to signify you are ready. Clan matches even began to spawn from these grudge matches. The idea of 4v4 game where again headshots were the only way to kill. Break that rule or kill someone trying to get ammo and you were shotgunned, often by your own team, and eliminated. Often hated, these are where the Snipe Kids came to play. And a victory meant another one in their Xbox Live record. Player-hosted lobbies and no ranks were a core aspect of Gears of War 1, and one I really enjoyed playing. Now, I don't even think it would work today. It worked because of all those things we've spoke about. The game chat, the player-hosted matches, the community, and it was a large melting pot of goodness, but it was a blast, and I absolutely love looking back on those times, and I look back on them with very fond memories. So, we've heard about ranked and player matches and mini games that have spawned from that scene, but what about the competitive and how that handled compared to future titles? Competitive. It's quite odd talking like this because I don't want to sound like your dad harping on about how the older years were better. I'm not saying that at all, it was just different. Esports didn't really exist for consoles, and when it did, it certainly wasn't mainstream. It certainly wasn't cool, and most definitely you weren't going to tell anybody other than your close friends that you played games that hard. It was taboo, at least in my experience. You were not playing for money, you were not trying to go pro, you were not following a tier list of the best weapons, you didn't follow YouTube guides really on how to improve. Capturing gameplay footage and YouTube were just beginning to exist, and as a result, the community were all simultaneously learning how to play that game in the best way. It was a community that grew together, inspired each other, and ultimately loved Gears and just wanted to get better. I went to one local LAN event in my lifetime, and the travel was more than the prize for placing half decently for most players. Recently, I was able to watch MLG with 10,000 people live, watching the group stage of a team competing in a 1 million prize pool. For a direct comparison, I was banned from a competitive forum in 2008 when I called out their livestream quality. Quick story, I made a YouTube video reviewing the local livestream event. I had about 4,000 subs at the time and it got, I think, a few thousand views at the time. It was quite a lot. I private messaged the owner with my video explaining that if he wanted some growth in his scene and for people to tune in, that he needed to have audio that didn't crackle and buzz. He needed a commentator and a good quality stream. People won't stay otherwise. I was told that my large online audience and my video were more harmful to their event and their brand than any bad audio ever could be. That's how far we've come in this scene. Player booth didn't exist and players were next to each other and could hear what the commentator was saying. Towards the end of Gears of War 1, my routine was I signed in, I played Annex for an hour or two, I chatted to people in the lobby, I'd find people that I thought were good or chill, and from the Annex mode I'd ask if they wanted to scrim, and we'd move into scrims or maybe play some GB. Game Battles was basically an online ladder where you queued for a match and got points if you won. When I queued, I knew I was going to go into a super sweaty game mode and I was okay with this. I knew what I was getting myself in for when I searched. These had tighter rules, certain map, no weapon slides, friendly fire on. These games were the most competitive you could play bar LAN events, and it was something where anything went on to win. Cross Lancer, active downs, 2 pieces the lot. Friendly fire was important for the balance of the game because you couldn't always just spray your Lancer across the map, as if you were inaccurate, you would damage your own teammates, so you will often see clips of people stopping shooting to be more accurate via not hitting them, and pushes and other plays happened a bit more frequently because you didn't always have a 5-man support team cheerleading you on from across the back of the map. You would play a season, and at the end of that season, a winner was crowned. What was good about this was everybody was on the same page. Everyone was there to try hard and win. In Gears of War Ranked, now, you get a mixture of people playing for fun, mixture of people playing for MMR, and others just trying to maybe get a clip for a montage. And it can frustrate people that their rank has been affected by others. Others that you may not want to team with, play with, or just aren't as good as you. or too good. Gears of War 1 didn't have this problem because you played for yourself. You played for your own leaderboard rank, and if you wanted to take it up a level and be more competitive, there was GB. And even then, there was banter back and forth and a bit of mutual respect that everybody there was trying to step it up a level.
You will not lose again. I will not tolerate defeat.
Oh, we weren't talking to you guys. We were talking to our own team. Nice kill. One kill. Was that one kill? Faggot fun, just leave your mic. Thanks.
Scrims and competitive in any game, especially early Gears of War, was usually played very differently at the top level compared to a random rank match, and I wanted to get that information down and out. Much more team firing, crossing, pistoling, holding weapons and powerful positions on the map. It wasn't the mindless shotgun rolling that people will have you believe. I am in no way trying to tell you which is right or wrong. I'm not balance whining. The developers have gone in a slightly different direction, a direction which I personally do not enjoy. However, rather than simply go on a forum and make a 1-hour post about how bad Gears of War is, I prefer to make this long form video and talk about what I enjoy and don't enjoy. And maybe you come round to my way of thinking, or maybe it's just sparked a debate. Getting back to that defensive cover and the issue earlier developers faced. Well, future games in that franchise definitely struggled with that initial worry, specifically when it came to the multiplayer aspect of the game. It definitely felt slower, primarily due to the longer range of sights, the longer maps, the stronger rifles, and overall damage across the board, and that coupled with slower animations has often frustrated players. Even remakes of the same Gears of War 1 map felt slightly different due to the threat across the map from high damage hit scan style weapons. Suddenly, where there was an opportunity to push, there was nothing but waiting in cover for your health to regen. Gridlock is an example here. Some of the greatest features have been spawned out of bugs, engine limitations or hardware limitations that have led to corner cutting and then bugs. Strafe jumping was a result of a bug in the code based on the 1996 first-person shooter game Quake, but it was later decided that that bug was to be kept intact, and it became a standard technique used by players. Gears of War 1, in my mind, was never designed to be the game it became, and I think for a lot of players it was a jarring experience. They purchased the game, played the campaign, played it like it was a rigid cover shooter, and then dropped into the multiplayer. And they were often greeted by people steaming around with shotguns, rolling, shotgunning, blind firing, the lot. But to me, and many others, that was exciting. It quickly became the only game I played. But again, that jarring disconnect for people was probably a reason why developers have gone in the other direction, so there is less of a disconnect from when you move from Horde, where your Lancer can drill down an enemy across the map, and then they go into multiplayer and the Lancer still feels effective. In Gears of War 1, they would have Lancered out of cover, Lancer being their core weapon and grenades and boom shots being the core weapon. Suddenly they were dropped into the multiplayer where a good player with good movement could slip and outmaneuver everybody and seemingly play with only the shotgun. However, against better players and on a competitive level, the shotgun really wasn't king. It was actually the Lancer and the pistol. It was just shotgunning in ranked because the players weren't really quite as good, and competitive players could get away with using the shotgun and playing with the tool they found most fun. Right now, in Gears of War, the rifles feel really natural for a game like Horde. When I play, you hold a strong defensive position and you kill the monsters across the map and it feels good. So when a player moves into Gears of War multiplayer these days, there's less of a disconnect because their rifle and defensive playstyle definitely holds up somewhat in the multiplayer. However, in my opinion today, we see Gears of War merging away from that dark locus third-person shooter with an emphasis on explosive close quarters battling to this Hollywood-style Call of Duty hybrid. Now, I'm being a little bit over the top. It's still Gears, but all these small percentage changes have added up and slightly changed the makeup of the game for me. Weapon balance. Weapon balance is a highly talked about topic, and I will begin to chat about it now. But something you have to remember is that the maps are just important to the balance of the multiplayer game, if not more so. The two go hand in hand. Think about it this way. In an extreme case, you could have a map that is one big long corridor. Now, you could have the most balanced variety of guns and mechanics going on, but a long-range gun is still going to be supreme due to the map. StarCraft often balances its races not with patches but with maps. So when I talk about Gears of War 1 being my favourite game, maybe, just like Gears of War 2 was a good favourite of mine, barring the rifles, maybe it's because the maps were just better. It's the combination of everything, the movement, the maps, the smaller player count. You can't really put it down to one thing. Gears of War 1 had a great development team, and Gears of War 2 for that matter. Their maps were superb, which will be my starting point, as I don't think you can discuss balance without talking about maps. A great example of how maps can affect weapon balance. The Sculpture would dominate Gears of War 2, because Gears of War 2 had Gears of War 1 style maps, close quarters pushing maps, and a Sculpture was a high damage spray weapon at close. So really, it just destroyed people trying to play the game in the way the map told the player how to play the game. A great example is the incendiary grenade. Maybe instead of buffing the incendiary grenade so it's an instant kill, they could use it to form choke points. However, because the maps are large, wide, open spaces, it's often hard to create a choke point on a Gears of War 3, 4/5 map. So, with choke point options really been out of the way, they had to give it some reason to be picked up, so they just gave it high damage. Maybe if the maps were tighter, the incendiary grenade could be weaker but with a larger AoE, and it could create a zoning tool. An incendiary grenade would be tossed into a wide open map, and if it misses, it was pointless, and it was often ignored by players, thus giving them the idea that these grenades sucks when it was actually the map that was not allowing the grenade to form any sort of zoning tool, so it needed to be an instant kill. More often than not, it's the maps that make a game amazing. I might sound like a shotgun player, a large shotgun kid, but the fact is we all lanced in Gears of War 1 scrims, GB and competitive. But in Gears of War 3, 4 and even 5 tech test, it's been made too easy. To me, the best maps that have been produced by far were in Gears of War 2 and 1. The most disliked maps, if I can remember, or at least the least hosted by players overall, were probably Rooftops, Subway, Bullet Marsh, Escalation, Process, Tyro Station. Why? Because these maps had slightly longer lines of sight. They were slightly larger and often had a place to cross lancer more easily without the use of a team. The games weren't quite as fast paced on these maps, and although not bad maps in any way, it wasn't the go-to map. They were okay to break it up for a change, but that was it. Tyro Station had its own charm via teardropping or trying to kill the player through a train. I loved hiding in the edge of darkness of Bullet Marsh, or Fuel Depot I loved to snipe off between the boxes popping up and down. Garden, could you make it through the gas? Mansion, giving up boom control to try and get that headshot from up top in the sniper. Rooftops, trying to find that perfect Hammer of Dawn angle to break the stalemate. Or War Machine, fighting on that snipe cover to win the snipe and open up map control. Or Canals, where you dominate the high side. Gears of War 2 had some superb maps, but they often felt worse because of the strength of the rifle. However, the power of rifles did make more sense in game modes like Guardian and Submission. Also, the slightly cheaper tactics made a lot of sense in Guardian. Grenade tagging, strong suppression, it all made sense because you were there to protect the leader. You could protect yourself with grenades, and it made sense. Playing execution and having to check for corners was not great fun. I think Halo did a really good job with different settings for each game mode, and disabling certain settings for each game mode or creating maps for specific game modes. For me, there was just a lot more memorable moments in the Gears of War 1 era because the maps and the community and the balance was ever so slightly better, and it allowed players more freedom of movement. Actually really okay with some of the new game modes in Gears of War. I find myself playing King of the Hill and enjoying it. Something I never would have thought I would be doing. Again, it has fallen into this trap that you could Lancer the hill, set up, and then you can't push the hill because everybody has a big tall hill or overlook places with stopping power. Creating the game mode so you have to be in the hill to earn points would mean it would be more fast-paced and more pile-in action, the true fast-paced mode that Gears of War needed. I can't blame players for setting up and lancering because the current game mode encourages that. Escalation is the primary competitive mode and functions like domination, but you cap 3 hills and you instantly win. It's the core esports game of 2019 and I don't like it. I dislike what it's done to the small tight Gears maps. They've become these large, drab, open, expansive Call of Duty style maps. It works, but again, to me that's not what Gears is. They lack charm. The maps are so large that it ends up generally being a close game, not because the players clutch it or the magic moments, but because you have to capture A or B or C, and then you have to run to C or A, and there's a lot of running and Lancer covering fire, and often the game ends because you can't get to a certain point or break it, and not really that a crazy moment has happened for you to win the round. I'd personally love to see a capture the flag mode, fast-paced running, picking up, resetting. It's hard to tell if it's the maps I dislike or the balance that makes me dislike the maps. Gears of War 1 never felt frustrating to me like this. It was a pure joy to play. But I often feel bored in Gears of War 4, and that's a problem. It seems strange to have left the multiplayer section till last, because to me that is the most important part of Gears of War. It's where I spent all my time, it's what I enjoyed the most, and it seems daft to just tag it on at the end of a 1 hour video. Planned on breaking down every single mechanic in excruciating detail. I was basically desperate to prove how right I was, and talk about how the new games are worse. I guess, however, through the process of writing the script for the video, watching videos, talking to friends about the game, I realised that it wasn't just the mechanics that made the game enjoyable. It was the era it was played in, how old I was, it was the friends, it was the community, and even if everything got reverted back to Gears of War 1, it wouldn't quite be the same. Look, Gears of War 4 and 5 aren't that bad. They definitely are worse, but they're just a few tiny % off damage values and mechanics, and for me that's changed how the game plays. The rifles are definitely a dominant feature, and the shotgun has gone from a careful dance of strafing, bouncing and running, to what feels like 2-shot hard aim downs and sprinting in to try and get that 1 shot, only to slightly misjudge it, get 87% and then die. Flick shots, whip shots are slightly harder to do due to center screen aiming being removed, and as a result the sniper is no longer a pure joy to use because its outplay potential has gone. Things like when you snipe, your scope is moved, so an already dominant rifle can now provide other features other than support. Roadie running feels ever too slightly too slow. Strafing does too. Rolling is pretty much a death sentence in this game, where in Gears of War 1 it could be used as another tool to outplay and get kills in certain situations. Funnily enough, I've spoke about how Execution is the game mode, how Warzone is the game mode, and it's not in Gears of War 5. They said it's because there was no players, and that's true, but to me, there was no players for a reason. The game's rifle play is stupidly broken, and we already saw in competitive play at LAN events that it was mostly cross-lancering and pistoling on Gears of War 1. So when you give that gun quicker rate of fire, larger clips, more accuracy, and more damage, well, it's going to be even more broken. Shotgun dances are literally just seemingly about one-shots now, and there are not many extended fights. There's certainly no real strafing, especially in the Gears 4 Pro scene. It's very, very low and barely seen. Explosives are way too strong, grenades too, and all of that adds up to a game that doesn't suit a one life mode. Not to mention, it's first to 5, it's just too short. People just try way too hard because all of a sudden it can be 4-4 and the last round is crucial. If you made it first to 15 or let the players host the maps and change the bleed out settings, you might get some players, but the way the game is set up now, I guess it sadly makes sense to remove execution. Can you imagine in Gears of War 1 and 2 saying that in future Gears of War titles there won't be an execution? But it's gone that way, and that's the way they designed it. It's all about rotations, camping hills and capping hills and holding certain locations with lancers and not moving around the map and controlling the map to clutch it. Spotting is also bad for execution because you get tracked and you can't tuck in around a wall for that split second. The enemy doesn't have to think, can I slide to this wall? Is he camping it? If you've been spotted, they know exactly where you are, and your movement opportunities and your places to maneuver around the map and clutch are limited. The whole skill for me of Gears of War 1 multiplayer was how you controlled the map and how you moved the opponents around the map to get them in favourable positions for you to clutch it. You would count ammo, you would, you know, do a whole host of things, watched where people went, you planned your routes of attack, and these days it's very much designed to be, oh, he's got the grenades, that's probably going to kill somebody, and then you respawn and then you tackle him, now he doesn't have grenades. It's a completely different game, and it's kind of going to that Call of Duty die spawn. You can still get clutches and great moments, but overall it's amazing that Gears of War does not have execution anymore. These days it's more brainless team deathmatch and lancering across the map, and to be honest that's the way they've designed the franchise and that's the way it's become, and it's the reason it never retains players, because people that enjoy that simple team deathmatch style of gameplay will play Gears of War for a few weeks or maybe even a couple of months, and then they'll go off and they'll play a different game. They don't stay with it, and the core community isn't really there, and to me that's why Gears of War 1 is always going to be the king, because it just had such a tight-knit community and the balance never changed, and they didn't try to make different settings for different people. It was just, this is the mode, it's fast, it's quick, it's based around execution. If you don't like dying and waiting a minute or two, then the game isn't for you. So I'm now going to, I guess, showcase a load of clips that I think highlight how good the game is and highlight why I enjoyed the mechanics, and then that's it really. Let's start with a clip that on paper just looks like a generic Gears of War match. This is a scrim between two sets of very good players, and it's War Machine, a classic Gears of War map. It starts with people throwing nades, trying to zone, there's some cross-lancering, people are getting revived, people shotgunning and pushing in. There's all kinds of things that are happening right now that are very interesting to note, and I'm going to go back in the clip and break it down, but for now, let's just watch. It just looks like your generic Gears of War game, right? It's just some people chasing mindlessly after a guy with a shotgun. It doesn't really scream anything exciting, it doesn't really look that interesting, and to most people just see Gears of War 1 and think, just people missing shots, bad players, it's a shotgun battle. But let's take it back and let's rewatch that. So the round begins, immediately every single player switches to their shotgun, interestingly, and a couple people shoot for pre-actives because you could only pre-active in that way. Nowadays in Gears of War, you basically have a timer on your active reload, which means you can constantly active reload a full clip, and once that bar is full and you're ready to active reload, if you miss the active reload, you just press right bumper again and you can reload again. You get infinite opportunities, so even landing an active reload has been changed. So here he fires off a warning shot and takes control of the block. He fires a warning shot and then slides to cover because he couldn't cancel, so he wants to fire that shot to make sure he basically doesn't get pushed on. So the warning shot's gone down and now he's ready to reload. This player here is being crossed. This player here is being crossed. He actually gets down, so rifles are already been used, and this player right here, he pushes in immediately for the kill because it's execution, and this guy here that he's crossing can no longer see him, and was struggling to find an angle because he's tucking in behind this box. Joe here, I think his name is, now realises, okay, it's now a 2v1, and he pushes in. Now, notice across here, there's also a guy that has got an angle. So we've got one over here and one over here. He tried to cross him, this player's now dead, and this guy is crossing here. So for me, rifles have always been a key factor in Gears of War. It's just people don't remember it because they probably never played versus any good players. This player is now out of the fight, and realistically this Lancer can't damage him or can't really down him. It's just supporting fire. He was just supporting his mate over here. So now this player is down. Joe is happy enough to go ahead and basically get the kill. So he gets the kill, and now this player has pushed in. Joe then effectively strafes. He turns his character away and then turns again, slides to the wall, and he can't cancel that maneuver. So now what he's thinking is, if this player shoots me, I'm probably going down, but maybe not, because he is quite a large distance away. The distance to down was a lot bigger, and there's two walls. He can go, maybe he can slide to this wall, he can slide to maybe this little lower block here and blind fire over, or he can walk forwards and then slide to this block. So let's see what he does. So he actually slides to this block and Joe reads it. So you'll notice the second, if we rewind this back, he's a little bit unsure of what's going on, and the second that animation happens there, you can see his body tucked, and he has to go to this wall now because he has committed. There is no wall cancel. So now he knows, okay, he's 100% going to this wall. He can't cancel out of it. He can't shoot me whilst he's doing it. So Joe just waits and he shoots him and he kills him. And that was a nice little play. He kept out of the down range and he forced the Cog to make the wrong decision of sliding in because he misjudged how red Joe was. He could have probably downed him, but he forced him into the slide and he read it and he's dead for it. Now all of a sudden we're in this situation. Now because he's very low on ammo because he's very low on ammo and he's sort of behind him mid-roll, he realises I'm probably not going to kill him if I just start a shotgun battle. I'm going to have to reload and he might be able to run away. So he goes in for here, the melee, and he's just out of range of the melee. That's kind of the Cog avoiding it quite well there. Misses the shot because the guy rolls, and because he's quick on his roll, he's away and he's already running. There's less delays. And now he's only got one bullet, and he hasn't really been touched, so he's probably not going to go down. Now in modern Gears of War, this player here would probably be hit by a pistol, a rifle, even his stopping power would be on his shotgun, and there's slightly more range on your shotgun. Even in the competitive mode, the stopping power is still there, and he probably would get down somewhere. You'll notice here, he runs off, and what he does is, as he runs off, he flicks this torque bow onto the floor as he rolls. So he rolls and flicks the torque bow on the floor. Now this means that Joe basically has to go wide, which takes a long amount of time, or run through, maybe get stuck, maybe get put full red, and then the Cog character can instantly switch weapon and spin on him and take a 1v1. Because his mate is a little bit behind him. So that torque bow there seems simple, but it gives him an opportunity to give him a 1v1. So he fires off that torque bow. Joe then decides, right, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to go the long way around. Then he pushes in, and what he does is the Cog is trying to find the clutch spot. So he knows there's one guy here, and there's one guy somewhere back here. Now he shoots a torque bow roughly here, so Joe can't just charge and slide into that wall, peep over and shotgun him. So he's put another zoning tool out and he's trying to clutch there. So there goes the shot, we roll, and now the Cog knows he's maneuvered people around the map. He's got the people, even though he's in the defensive position, he's managed to maneuver people, so they're probably going to split up. One might go this way, he's going to push round, or maybe he's going to be slightly delayed because he's a little bit behind. So Hoffman knows that now this is his opportunity to basically get the 1v1 he's been looking for and maybe clutch it. So he sees here, he rolls back, and now he knows immediately he's one-on-one with the player. He knows that this is it, like, I've got to win the 1v1 to potentially clutch it, otherwise I'm going to probably just eventually get caught, or they're going to reset, get some weapons and catch me later on. So here, he goes in for the steam. Now, what you can do is, in Gears of War 1, you can basically run and shoot basically instantly. There's very, very little delay compared to Gears of War 4 and 5. And he looks for the one-shot, but he's probably not confident he can one-shot him from this distance, and he knows this is his only opportunity, maybe to get a clean 1v1. So he went for the look up and swing, and he actually whiffs it completely. And then the Locust thinks, I'm going to now secure it, because we can do. He melees him down and finishes him. And that was just a simple example of, to me, what makes Gears so great. A simple piece of footage where seemingly it's just a kind of a shotgun fest. There was a lot that went into it, and I think in Gears of War 4 and 5, the rifle's been slightly overpowered. The ability to wall cancel and the ability to sort of, I guess, spot, track where people are going, and overall, I guess, just more damage across the board from grenades, explosives, and there's a lot more cheap tools that it's lost its charm, and a simple clip like this can be really, really great. I was planning, again, on breaking down loads of examples of whip shots, shotguns over cover, cover battles, you know, because shotgun battles over cover have been basically removed because you can yank someone off cover, you can mantle kick them, all those close cover fights have stopped, and I was going to break down absolutely everything, but I don't think I need to, because it would just be way too long and way too dragged out and really not that interesting. I just thought I'd show a little clip there of exactly why I liked Gears of War, all the little mind games that went into it, and I'm not a big fan of run at hill, capture hill, hold hill, or, you know, try and capture 3 hills, and Gears of War has gone from this delicate shotgun dance of range and trying to predict if someone's going to a wall or they're going to strafe, and it's just gone to this spam wall bounce. You're just bouncing in between walls, you're just spamming, and you're just trying to get in range for that one shot, and sometimes it happens, and sometimes you might flick shot someone, one shot them, wall bounce, one shot 3 other people, and it looks amazing, and other times you just get downed or you get lanced, and it's not consistently outplayable. Whereas in Gears of War 1, when you died, it felt like there was definitely something I could have done there. In Gears of War 4, when 2 grenades come at you, you think, say a prayer, because these grenades are gonna nuke the entire map. And there's just a lot less charm and overall skill, I think, in the game. But I guess not so much skill, just fun. Outplays are fun, and I think there's a lot less potential in these modern games. So there it is. That is everything I had to say on Gears of War 1, 2, 3, whatever. There's a load of stuff I missed out. To be honest, I could sit here and speak for 5 hours on every intricacy in the mechanics of the game and all the outplay potentials and all the maps and how the maps functioned and flowed, but I think you get the point. It's not a bad game. Gears of War 4, 5 aren't bad games. They're just ever so slightly off, and it's just created a different vibe. It's no execution, it's respawn game modes, it's long range grey maps, it's just ever so slightly less charming. So let's throw up the credits. Thanks for watching. If anybody has watched this far, then you're amazing. Thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. There are ways to support me in the description. This took an absolute mammoth age to write, find footage for, and talk about, and I'm probably going to hit upload and I'm going to think that was pointless, that was a waste of time. I'm also going to think, God, I missed out so many things, but I think I'm done. I'm closing the chapter on the game, really. That's all there is to it. There's a lot I could speak about. Again, so many things, but that to me was Gears of War, just a great piece of gaming time / history, and hopefully Gears of War 5 becomes brilliant. Hopefully it does. But just wanted to chat about Gears of War for a little bit and get everything out of my mind and pretty much move on, I guess. We're closing the chapter on the game. If anybody ever asks me what do I think of Gears of War 1, I can now link them to this video and say sit down, there you go, enjoy that, and there we have it. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.